pranks and outrageous behavior. Have you guys already thought of something from your own life just listening to Sandra? Anybody already think of something?
Oh, I got a list of things.
Okay.
Share.
Good, because I want to hear what you guys have come up with as well. Ellen said to me tonight, we should just not bring necessarily developed stories that are in our repertoire, but just tell something that comes to your mind. So when I was a little kid, I often would go to this woods near my house. There was a creek down there and a pond, and it wasn't no big shakes, this woods. But in the pond, there were always frog eggs and frogs. In the creek, there were mud puppies and fish and snakes to be found, turtles. So there was the time that I brought home, conservatively speaking, 15,000 frog eggs. And due to one of my friend's suggestions that they needed an aquatic environment, I put them in my mother's bathtub. And so I meant to tell her about it, but you know, little kids will get kind of on the wrong course, waylaid, I forgot, and realized that she had found them when I heard her scream. But I can't tell you about that because it's part of a story that I tell. So I can't tell you about that. However, that paled in comparison to the fact that on a subsequent visit to the same woods, in June, early June and late May, snapping turtles laid their eggs. You know, they can lay as many as 50 to 100 eggs. And so we happened upon a 35-pound snapping turtle, which, honest to God, they're this big around when they're 35 pounds worth. And that's a fairly dangerous amphibian. It could probably snap a little kid's wrist in half with no trouble. And so the same fellow who convinced me to put the frog eggs in my mother's bathtub said this would make a pretty good pet. So we wanted to bring it home, and we tried some sticks in its mouth to pick it up and kind of carry it like so, but it snapped all of the sticks. Fortunately, down there in the woods was a rusted piece of angle iron, some 6 feet long. And with him on one side of that angle iron and me on the other, we convinced the turtle to bite on it, which it did, and then it wouldn't release the angle iron, ever. So we put it on the back of our bicycle and drove back to my mother's house. When I got home, I said, so what do we do with it? He said, well, it needs an aquatic environment. And so you can probably guess where it went. Went in my mother's bathtub again, so my mother's procedure for taking a shower was, usually, she would come to the bathroom and the shower curtain was closed. And she would reach behind the curtain and turn the water on, feel it, kind of wait until it got the right temperature. Then she was already undressed. She would just walk around the curtain and get into the bathtub like that, water already flowing. However, since the frog egg episode, she had taken to looking behind the curtain before she went in, which was a pretty good thing because when she did look behind there, there was the 35-pound snapping turtle with the long piece of angle iron still in its mouth. And she screamed much louder that day. I can't tell you about this though because it's part of a story that I actually tell in other settings. And so what I can tell you about today, but really it's not quite a story. I mean, it's not I don't want to tell you this story about Beverly, who I worked with one time. She had some of those half cut off glasses, you know, kind of talking about little half round glasses, how I blacked with ink, permanent too, as it turns out. The middle part for the bridge of your nose, right on, and she put her glasses on, and I knew that this would happen, because it always did. They always would kind of come down her nose, and she'd always be doing that with those glasses, pushing them back up. And somehow she didn't see all that ink that had totally, you know, kind of marked her nose. And I want to tell you about that. What I want to tell you about is something entirely different.